Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the channel. If you happen to be new, definitely feel free to hit that subscribe button. I know it's a nuisance to hear people ask you to subscribe over and over, but I'm a small nobody channel, and you hitting the subscribe button and hitting the like button, if you do like this video, definitely does wonders for the channel. And with that said, let's go into what we have today. So I've been out for a little bit. Everything is okay. I hope everything is okay with you all. I'm finally doing another part to making a godlike Breath of the Wild sequel. And today we're going to be going over the story structure that I have in mind for this. What do we know? We know that AQUAME said that Nintendo would work on Breath of the Wild, or at least they've worked on Breath of the Wild for about 5 years. Like from announcement to actual conception, it's been about 5 years. So are they going to make use of the same assets? You damn skippy, they're going to use it, bruh, son. So what else do we know too? It's going to be Hyrule once again. I think AQUAME even said it was going to be Hyrule once again, which, you know, to no one's surprise, of course. The bigger topic though, the thing that any particular Zelda fan can really get behind and really sink their teeth into, to really just get that butthole just puckered up, is that Breath of the Wild 2 is set to be darker than Majora's Mask. Now, Majora's Mask for me as a kid, it was so dark, I couldn't even finish it. Like, I could finish it later now that I'm older, but as a kid, it put me off, and I was scared of it. Like, I was scared to leave the town because of how eerie everything was. It was just eerie. It was more eerie than Ocarina of Time. And if you're a Zelda fan, you definitely know there was some pretty messed up spots in Ocarina of Time. I'm talking about you, Shadow Temple. Ugh. Dude, when Redead scream, it still makes me just, my butt clench. So, anyways, we know it's supposed to be darker than Majora's Mask. And from just the trailer alone and just all the things that have been said about Breath of the Wild 2, there's only so many outcomes that you could have. First things first is, I think Hyrule could probably go through something like World of Warcraft, like Cataclysm, where you take the existing map and it's just updated with different things. I feel like that's like one of the, if not the simplest thing. I actually almost don't question that that's going to be the case to some degree. Whether it be all by itself, I don't know. The next thing that I would say would happen would be you could do a access to the dark world or some like parallel realm or something to that effect. That way you could explain having Link in pretty much essentially the same general environment, but it looks different. You can use the same assets, rearrange them however you see fit, but just make it like a different realm, because this has been done before. It's been done with Hyrule versus Lorule and A Link Between Worlds. You got the original A Link to the Past, which is an incredible game if you don't already know what that is. If you're watching this video, you probably already do. Where you've got Ocarina of Time and then you've got Majora's Mask, which those two are more like WoW Cataclysm in my opinion. It's the same, but just kind of like there's tweaks made. Same people to use, same general environment, but it's just rearranged differently. So that's one way that you could go about it. Another option I think is possible that could happen. What's going on will open up a path to one of the surrounding regions or something like that. For instance, in Breath of the Wild, Nintendo is very familiar at this point. AQUAME and his team, they're all very familiar at this point with the Switch. The Switch has been out for like 3 years, definitely. It's hit its 3-year anniversary last month, at least at the recording of this video. I don't see why you couldn't expand Hyrule. You can take the existing assets, but multiply them and spread them out. And by the way, when I say this, I don't have a problem with the sequel taking longer than expected. You see what happens when you take a while to properly make a game. Like when you actually give a crap about what you do and you just don't want to hurry it out for money, you can make phenomenal things. You can make breathtaking things. You can make things that will stay with people for the rest of their lives. Now, is that going to be your intent? You know, that's up to the developer, that's up to the company. But given Nintendo's track record, given Ianuma's track record, I think they give two craps. So it's safe to say that they're going to make a quality game rather than just rush it out. It's that whole Miyamoto, you know, a halted game, or at least a game that you take time to actually make, is eventually good. But a game that you rush is bad. It's probably going to be bad forever. So I feel like that's going to be a part of that as well. But a small quality of life improvement, this is what I was thinking of earlier. I would prefer them to say you can't go further, Hyrule must be saved, or something like that, rather than just typing, like when you get to the edge of the map, you can't go further. But just to build on top of that, yeah, since they're familiar with the Switch now and the hardware limitations of it, of how far it can possibly go, I don't see why they can't expand the map by that much. Now it's probably too much to ask for, but I honestly don't see it. I'm okay with using the same assets. Just be creative with the models, make a couple of new ones and all that other good stuff. Do whatever you need to do to make a quality product. That's how I see it. But yeah, you have the same setting, but I don't know, you can call him like the Lynch King Ganondorf, because that's pretty much what he reminds me of in the state that he's in the trailer. You can have him as he's unsealed and the landscape is devastated as a result of it. And you can make like new inland areas. The seas are created, lush forests become wastelands. There's a bunch of things you can do, like with Ganon being resurrected, allegedly, based off this trailer, allegedly. Like it causes a cataclysm, causes a massive cataclysm, and the landscape is completely changed, which thereby opens up new places and new things to explore. There are some places that'll end up still being the same, because Hyrule's pretty massive, but then it also changes up some things completely different. You get access to the Zonai ruins, like things that look like actual places you could go, and things that you couldn't see before, now you can see it. And another option that you could do is same setting but much more rebuilt. Like these, and again, these are just elements of the story. I'll probably do more in like some future videos of it. But rebuilt, there are a ton of new settlements, for example, since everybody's thinking that everything is A-okay and you can move further into Hyrule. Because with Zelda's hair being cut, I'm going to assume that a certain amount of time has passed since the ending of the original Breath of the Wild. And I feel like it should be much more massive and sprawling at this point. The game could take place in the same Hyrule, of course, but entirely in caves underground is another possibility that they could do. Is think like Black Reach from Skyrim, but on steroids. You could do something like that, or even like Underdark from D&D. Man, I'm talking about some things some of you probably have no idea about, which I don't blame you. Skyrim, some of you probably know. D&D, I might as well just ice that. I don't think anybody knows what I'm talking about, but anyways, they could do that. The cavern from the trailer was filled with a bunch of glowing rocks. These could be time shift stones. They could be the luminous stones. It could be one and the same. They could be two separate things. I don't know, but we can add that as a possible element to add into the story. Or maybe we'll visit Hyrule from 100 years ago, 10,000 years ago. I know 10,000 with that whole translation thing is kind of shaky. I don't think it's set in stone that it's 10,000 years ago. I think that's just a translation thing. Let me know in the comments if that's actually wrong. But other elements that we could add into the story, because I'm trying to think of this off the top of my head. Because I really want to make a really good story. I really, really do. I want it to have all the stuff that really stays with you forever. But anyways, just to wrap a bow on the previous part, I think these are all the ways that Breath of the Wild could end up going, at least making the next sequel. But as far as like other elements, let's add some heartwarming things in there, some things that'll really just touch the soul. I mean, this isn't anything that's like, I'm not thinking, man, of course I'm not thinking of anything revolutionary, but I think in the original Breath of the Wild, there were some nice moments, but to be honest, other than Mipha and like the kitty without the mom, who was assassinated by the Yiga, it wasn't really too many. Oh, and then Zelda crying. I ain't gonna lie, that got me good. That hurt. I felt that internally. Like I personify that feeling of failure. But anyways, those things, though, I need more heartwarming moments and things like that to really just emphasize it. Maybe like Love in the End of the World or something like that, akin to what happened in Majora's Mask, where one of the quests was to, and I forgot the name of these two. I can remember what they look like, but I can't remember the names, and I'm not going to look it up. But one of the tasks was you had to unite them, and they were in love with each other when Majora's Mask was like, by the time you unite them, I think it's like the third day, and that's the day where the moon is about to fall onto the earth, and love at the end of the world. I need something like that. Something that really is just like, damn, y'all got me, man. Y'all got me good. Don't make me cry my manly tears. What else? A side character fighting through their own. One of the things too that I really going to add in, and I'll probably just talk about it further down the line, is I want to really hit some serious issues. Again, this is supposed to be darker than Majora's Mask, and Majora's Mask, from my understanding, covers dealing with the 5 stages of grief. And if you're going to be darker than that, then you've got to really just buckle down, dig deep, and really just be like, oh crap. But what I would say do is this: a side character fighting through their own mental illness, or maybe even one of the main characters, maybe Zelda. They probably won't do that. I don't think they will. But anyways, if you're going through some end of days apocalypse kind of crap, not everybody's going to come through it with a sound mind. So I think it would be fantastic. It'd be phenomenal if they actually tackled mental illness in this, because I think you don't have to be woke or really just talk about like serious issues, only if you want to. But since I have so much faith in, like, because Zelda has been putting out bangers, like complete badass bangers, for longer than I've been alive, as far as I know. And if they're able to do that, I don't question them to be able to put some really useful elements to really help people deal with their day-to-day lives. And mental health is actually, it's a massive issue, and I think they could easily tackle that in here. And again, some end of days kind of crap. Ganondorf, man. Like, you have like creatures rising up out of the ground, like skeletons rising up out of the ground. You mean to tell me nobody's getting PTSD from that? Dude, if I had to walk down, check this out. If I have to walk down the street and I have to worry some skeletons are going to come out of the ground and try to kill me, you think that's not going to make me freak out, dude? Like, dude, I'd never be able to sleep, boy. I'd never be able to sleep, man. I'd have a weapon in every room. I'd have a gun in every room. Like, boy, because they can just attack at any time. I have to worry about some re-deads, man. Some half human, half spider skulls, man. Like like minotaurs, like steroid jacked minotaurs with massive blades, man. And they look like they eat groups of people for dinner. You think I'm not gonna be like traumatized by that? Of course. So I think that should really be in there, and they really can go into detail about all the different things that go into dealing with such a crazy world. But what else would I put in there? What else? So, how enemies could respawn in the sequels. Well, there's a couple of ways that you could do this. There's one, like I said, with the Dark Realm. If you do a Dark Realm, that's easy. It's easy. It's a same place, all the different other enemies. It's a slam dunk. But I would like for regular Hyrule, if you went that route, to have new enemies as well. Now, whether you go back in time for that, or whether it goes to the future, or whether this is something that could happen. Link and Zelda, just like in the trailer, they go and venture down and they run into Ganon. You know, Ganon's got that whole swirling thing around him. We're going to talk about that later too. As they go down there to confront them and do whatever they're going to do, or whatever exploration that they do, they accidentally release new enemies from underground into the outside world. Like some kind of trigger happens, maybe some kind of massive earthquake that happens, and all the enemies that were underground, because again, you got skeletons rising up from the dirt, so I don't think this is really out of the realm of possibility. Like, damn. Anyways, they come out of the ground, and then even more guardians come out of the ground too, because you could say, well, you know, Breath of the Wild, you know, assuming they did away with all the guardians, but here's the thing. Even Robbie mentioned that guardians were below Hyrule. So what's not to say there's like an endless treasure trove of more guardians under there. I mean, guardians already replenished when the Red Moon happened in Breath of the Wild. There's no reason that can't happen either, to bring even more guardian types into the game. Like guardians that weren't really like, or at least they work, but they weren't the ones that were set to be used, like your prototypes or whatever the case. Maybe you got some crazier looking guardian types, some guardian variations. There's so much you could do with that, it's not even funny. So that's what I would do. And like I said, bringing Ganon back into the mix, or at least the real Ganon, quote unquote, then you could easily do that. The next thing that I would say that we could do is you could have a character that seems like a dick, but is actually not bad at all. Let's do some switcheroos. I know some of the stuff is going to be cliche, but I don't think we've really had that too much. Let's see. That wasn't a majority. I don't remember a character pulling a switcheroo, and well, there was, Dark Link. There was that one that did it, but it's Dark Link, man. That's kind of expected. So, as far as like a regular character pulling a switcheroo, I haven't played all the Zelda games, so I probably don't know. But I've played the majority of the ones that aren't portable, other than Breath of the Wild. I don't remember any other characters doing that, but yeah, let's have a switcheroo character, and I think that would be a nice pump fake to really, like, it has to be somebody that nobody expects. Or at least, by pump fake, I mean, you have a character that's actually a good guy, but he's, he or she seems really terrible, but they're actually really good, and then vice versa. Have a character that seems really good, but they're actually a piece of crap. That would add some much needed depth. Zelda has phenomenal lore. Let's be clear on that. Zelda has phenomenal lore, but sometimes the characters feel kind of shallow, and you don't have to focus on that too much because it's more about adventure and gameplay than actual story. Zelda and Mario game, just Nintendo in general, there is a ton of lore. Let's be clear, a ton of lore, but they don't really focus on really deep, like introspective kind of character building kind of things. They don't really do that. It's the missing piece in my opinion. Like, I need some kind of Mass Effect kind of story. It doesn't have to be convoluted. It doesn't have to go that far, but at least take some steps there to really give some character depth. Zelda's is in Breath of the Wild, this is the deepest that Zelda's character has ever went. You could say it kind of went there with Twilight Princess and Wind Waker, but I don't think it's to the Breath of the Wild level. Like, I relate to the Breath of the Wild Zelda more than I do Twilight or Wind Waker Zelda or Tetra or whatever. The next couple of elements that we can add into is more uncovered natural wonders. I want exploration to still be at the forefront of the next Zelda. I don't want it to be, oh, well, I'm familiar with all of this. I want exploration to be massive in this one as well, because that was the greatest thing about Breath of the Wild. One is the place is so big, there's just so many places you don't know what you're going to run into. Now, eventually, because you've played it for so long, you kind of get an idea. Even if you've missed some places in Hyrule, it's like, it's probably going to be a shrine or something. I need a lot more than that. I don't need it to be like another dinky shrine. Now, the shrines are great, but I need it to be better than that. I need it to be like, oh, this is amazing. Like some kind of like natural wonders would be phenomenal. Phenomenal. That's what I would do. And just litter the place with them. Or at least not necessarily litter. Well, considering I'm thinking of making the map 3 times as large because I'm assuming they're familiar, I would do that. I would litter the place, but it would be so massive that you wouldn't be able to tell. And now, when I do say increase the size, I don't mean increase the size and then not have like stuff in it and it just be empty. Like, no, it's got to have a bunch of stuff in it. But that's why I said I'm okay with the game being delayed to do that. I'm completely okay with that. In the meantime, like year over year, if you have to take that to like 2023 to get that done, I'm down. Seriously. You could release let me think. You could do a Twilight Princess remake or HD, kind of like Xenoblade Chronicles HD. Bring that over to the Switch. I don't have a problem with that. That can be 2020. Maybe do a Wind Waker for 2021 for Switch. Not a problem. I'm not super thrilled about them, but I will gladly take them to make because Majora's Mask is arguably my favorite Zelda game still. Breath of the Wild is my most favorite to play because Majora's Mask isn't as fun as I would like it to be. It's not that good as far as like gameplay, but the story is phenomenal. And if you're going to go in that direction with storytelling, keep the gameplay of Breath of the Wild, and you give me my favorite Zelda story, which is Majora's Mask, you really gotta dig your heels in deep. Because I want you to go balls, nuts, ass cheeks to the wall for this. I want you to leave nothing else on the table. I kind of doubt that will happen, but you never know. But if you're gonna do that, really just dig in. That's how I see it. Like for instance, quality of life. By the way, make it to where you have a music slider option for Breath of the Wild this time. You could technically program that into the original Breath of the Wild as an update. But what I would do is I'd make it to where if you wanted to be more natural, you could just kind of thin, like with a slider, you could thin out the music tones. You could thin out the actual music, like make incredible music, but thin it down to like small elements of it to where it still carries a tune, but it's not as pronounced like an actual song. And I think a ton of people would appreciate that. Sometimes I want a full Zelda orchestra. Sometimes I just want it to be peaceful and quiet. And giving the player an option to do that would be pretty dope. On the next Zelda, trials are no longer needed. So again, no more shrines. I like the shrines. I like the simplicity of not like a deep, intricate dungeon. Let me take that back. I want an intricate dungeon, but I don't want puzzles that much. I want very simplistic puzzles. Now, it's not going to be a popular opinion because Zelda is puzzles. It's puzzles and action adventure. Like that's his bread and butter. But I don't know, man. I have so much crap to try to, I feel like we all have so much crap to try to figure out in life. That in itself is a puzzle that is a pain in my ass. And I really don't want to have to do that in a game. It's like, oh boy, more puzzles. I enjoy it. But yeah, I don't want more puzzles, honestly. I have enough puzzles in my life to actually figure out, rather than I have to figure out these other puzzles to continue to enjoy a game. But again, I think that's probably going to be an unpopular opinion, but that's just my opinion. Continuing on, going darker than Majora's Mask, let's add in death of like a beloved character or something, or by the characters and the player. So Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much self-explanatory. Somebody's got to go. We got to get some Game of Thrones vibes in here. Not season 8 though. Season 8's hot diarrhea. I'm talking about like seasons 1. I'm talking about like seasons 1 through 4. Yeah, somebody's got to go so you can really feel like the weight of it. And it's got to be somebody that you actually like a lot. It's gonna suck for me too if they did something like that, but that would be the route that I would go. You got to make it stay with you. There's got to be something that just hits hard, just like those heartwarming moments. You to appreciate like good times, you've got to have really crappy times. Not that I want that to happen to anybody in real life, but just as far as storytelling goes, to appreciate the highs, you've got to have some really monstrous lows. And if you have them both together, then it really brings a much stronger impact on you. So yeah, we got to have some people to go, or if not, the death of like maybe like one at the very least. In this sequel too, let's have some unexpected things, like creatures coming to life randomly. Now, you do have the unexpected thing, like I said before, about the skeletons rising up from the ground, which would freak me the hell out in real life. But let's take that a step further. We need to take some cues from, say, like H.P. Lovecraft. Give me some Cthulhu vibes. Give me those kind of things, because they had some Cthulhu styles, some H.P. Lovecraft, some of that kind of things in the concept art for the original Breath of the Wild. You got that freaky crab looking thing, the freaky thing with the eyes. Like, dude, that stuff was there. But they decided to take it out. That stuff could be in the sequel. But yeah, take some elements of H.P. Lovecraft, some Japanese horror, because Japanese horror gets me. Boy, I'll let you look that up if you want to. I think death being prevalent during this time, like it'd be a time of reconstruction, rebuilding, but some serious things, like I said, because Ganon's making his return in one way or another, that's got to lead to some really bad things, like some really, really bad. And again, darker than Majora's Mask. But I think another thing too, make the punishments for losing painful within the story. Now, what do I mean by that? Remember, or at least if you've ever seen it, the old Adventures of Link, when I can't remember if it was, I think it was Zelda 2, like Adventures of Link. And whenever you lost or died, then it would show a game over screen with Ganon, like the return of Ganon. And then I think it had like an evil laugh or something like that. So if you die or whatever happens in the story, I guess you could show, I wouldn't make it long, because then people would be annoyed by it, but I would make it to where it just shows like something that's be like, damn man, I let these people down, like just make you feel like, hey man, I messed up. Now you're not really punishing the character, you're not punishing the player, but it's just another element to make them care more about saving Hyrule rather than just playing through it like, oh, I don't care about these NPCs, they're nothing, they're just things that are just here. But one thing you can know about me is I'm really big on storytelling and just padding in like thing after thing, strategy after strategy to really make the world come alive. And I think just even if this is like a really small touch, I feel like that would do wonders for making you actually care about the characters. So what else can you add in? I'm really trying to think of this stuff off the cuff. What you don't see or know to make things unsettling would be another thing that I would add in. Like whenever you're like those, was it Typhlo ruins or something like that? One thing that was really unsettling about it was, it was dark. You couldn't see what was happening in front of you. You didn't know if something crazy would jump out at you. Now, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you view it, it was nothing out of the ordinary jumped out at you in the ruins. It was just kind of just like regular stuff. What was it? Some bats, some wolves, a Hinox. Big deal. It's nothing really. But if you don't know that, and there is like freakier things in this game, then you've got something. It's like, all right, this is terrifying. Like, it's like, I'm not the biggest fan of horror games, but you best believe if you give me something like that, you're going to be more vested in saving Hyrule, because that stuff, I'm just thinking of Redeads and stuff like that, man. You can get really bad with this. Another thing, just a general element, what I would add in would be freedom, but focus more on storytelling. Make sure, above all else, that exploration and the player's freedom to do whatever they want. is top priority, but focus more on storytelling rather than just the gameplay. Gameplay first, storytelling second, but don't make storytelling that much weaker than the gameplay. They both should be stellar at this point. We're too far into the Zelda franchise to have weak storytelling. The next thing too is for the player's benefit, or at least continuing that, you really should be able to feel like your choices matter. Just like that whole game over thing, you need to feel like your choices actually have weight and impact the world. You have to have clear defined goals and a main story on top of that too. One thing that Breath of the Wild suffered from is you just kind of wander into the story again. I want it to be to where, again, you can do whatever you want, but you can actually have all these other stories that are happening too that still drive, or it can drive, the main plot in their own way. Like all these other branching stories that still have some relevance to the main story. That way you can still do whatever you want, but it still has impact on the main story. Or you are given like a world where things are happening and you can do whatever you want, but regardless of whether you do or don't, those things still happen regardless. Now you can affect those things and make them better for the characters that are in the story or not, is how it would do it. So let's talk about some world elements too. And I probably should have told you, given how long this is taking, probably should grab you some popcorn, a snack, a drink, whatever. I have no idea if you'll make it this far. But world elements, let's have commerce and trade being between villages as people travel. Now, they did do this in Breath of the Wild, but it was more of like, it wasn't as pronounced as I feel like it should be. If we're in the rebuilding of Hyrule, then there should really be heavy commerce going on, heavy trade going. Maybe like pilgrimages between the Temple of Time and other sacred places, including like the Fairy Mountains. You see people there, like people are they're doing their own thing. Like they're rebuilding Hyrule. And of course, you would have your general story beats and all that other stuff. Kind of like the way that Pixar does their movies, where it's like once upon a time, every day they do such and such until one day, and because of that, until finally, and then ever since then. So they follow that traditional story beat. This will be the general setup of how I do the next parts of this when I actually think of like a story, or at least a suitable story. As far as like the nuts and bolts of this, the elements of rebuilding Hyrule, they would have like energy and like an energy setup, because these places are going to need energy as they rebuild. You know, you got those whole furnaces, and that energy is coming from underground. So maybe it's like a geothermal, maybe it's like spiritual energy that's all over Hyrule, and they start to harness that. Because if you have those two furnaces, as far as I know, I think it's two, maybe three, that they start building those and using those throughout Hyrule. So have like an energy infrastructure thing kind of stuff. It doesn't have to be super pronounced, but just to make the world more believable. Then a whole geography thing with Hyrule Castle rising into the sky. Other parts of Hyrule rise. Like I said, with the whole cataclysm thing, you could easily do that. Going on to the mental health thing, I don't think I really went over that like I should. With it being darker than Majora's Mask, which is, covers death and other mental issues as far as I know. I really think, like, for instance, let me off the top of my head, PTSD, anxiety, depression, despair, hopelessness, flickering hope, hallucinations, all these kind of things. Again, you're in a crazy, if you step back and think about it, you're in Zelda. Zelda is a crazy world. It's an insane world when you step back and think. If you try to apply it to real life, if you had the same things that happen in Zelda happen in real life, you would freak out. Like, that's just what it is. So I really think it's a great opportunity, with it being darker than Majora's Mask, to cover these kind of serious issues. Because we all deal with this kind of stuff. Hell, the stuff that I just mentioned to you, I can knock off 5 of those that I deal with daily. So I get a couple of those D's, but I think it would be very good to add in. It's up to them. They're going to add it tonight. Criminal justice. Not everybody's going to be a goody two-shoes. I need that to be the case in this next iteration, because it's kind of boring that everybody's good and only Ganondorf is bad. Every other character is holier than thou. I don't buy that. That's not human nature. That's not even if it was like other creatures, I highly doubt that would be their nature too. It just doesn't feel right. So let's make it a little more spicy. Let's make it a little more interesting. Let's add some bad people that aren't aligned with Ganondorf or the Yiga for some kind of evil mission. Like, they're just greedy for themselves, because, and I won't even say that they're just bad. It's more of, because nobody just in general sees themselves as a bad guy. You know, you'll look around at other people and be like, oh, that's a terrible person. That's a terrible person. That's not a good person, is it? No. But they're more in it for themselves, and they have their own reasons for that. They have their own reasoning on why they do X, Y, and Z. Maybe be a bad upbringing, or a traumatic childhood, or their environment, or just like their mental capacity, or maybe they get it from their parents or some kind of mentor. Maybe they run with a bad crowd. You don't know. So adding that into the story, I think would be really good. Kind of like how Groot was kind of a dick, but he turns out he was cool. Just kind of like that, but maybe to like a couple of degrees more to the extreme. Not crazy extreme. I mean, you can do whatever you want with it, but just I would put that in mind. Have kind of an infrastructure thing. I think that one of the biggest things that should be in a sequel to the original Breath of the Wild would be infrastructure, which would be rebuilding everything. The original Breath of the Wild, as everybody should know at this point, is post-apocalyptic. Everything is in ruin. Everybody's been driven into these little spots in Hyrule, just waiting for the end pretty much, which is really sad when you really think about it. But yeah, Ganon, as far as they know, is defeated. Hyrule Castle is rebuilt as a symbol of the audacity of hope and perseverance, showing, demise. You can't keep us down, my boy. We gonna get back up. We gonna get back up, and I'm gonna slap the shit out of you. Anyways, yeah, the strongest station here to protect the citizens and the administration, and then you can build like other bigger places in Hyrule, like Hateno Village can get built out further. Gerudo Village expands, or whatever the case may be. Zora's Domain can expand. Just have expansions, have those outposts rebuilt, have the Colosseum rebuilt, which will probably, that actually gives me an idea. I'm going to save that for future iterations of this little thing that I'm doing with making really like a godlike sequel. But yeah, like Arbiter's Grounds repurposed or something like that. The Temple of Time rebuilt. Fort Hateno was rebuilt as like a refueling station or something, an inn or an outpost. Included in it, like a small, like I said, small outpost rebuilt. Lone Ranch should actually be rebuilt. That would actually be really awesome, and have somebody run that. Maybe a descendant of the original Lone Ranch owners, Malin, and that ornery old guy, or the guy with the mustache. I mean, that was kind of annoying, kind of a dick. He's actually a dick. But anyways, yeah, you could have that. Terrytown being expanded would actually be pretty awesome. You could say drain the Lake of Akala, filled by Varuta. I think that's the name of the divine beast for the Zora. Expand them into the wetlands. It's so much you could do. Get Kakariko Village expanded, or it probably could stay the same. I think Sheikah would probably keep it modest, but the plateau could be rebuilt. You could gain access to underneath the plateau. I mean, you had the obvious buildings underneath the plateau, so there was something there, and I feel like you should be able to gain access to that in the sequel to Breath of the Wild. Religion of Hyrule, you could have this religion versus technology kind of thing going. I think it would be great to raise the debate over religion versus technology. You don't have to go balls to the wall on it, but at least touch on it just a little bit, just a little tap, like dip a toe. And I think Zelda should go over that. Like that'd be one of the main Kruska her character in the follow-up, but I'm going to talk about that more later. But yeah, technology, for instance, like archaeologists studying the fossils of the giant creatures, say the one that's in Goron Mountain, those big leviathans that are spread throughout Hyrule, the one in Hebra, the one it's at the edge, like near the giant, like it's towards the end of the map for the giant one. It has like a great flame blade there. I can't remember where that is. And then the one that's in Gerudo Desert, like studying that, I think that'd be really cool. Like have other people trying to figure out the past along with those other, I can't remember, were those archaeologists? I think they were. And they were doing their theories and all that stuff. Like have other characters do that too. Make like a little archaeologist society, like a technology society, something like just for the sciences. So you have people for the religion, and you have people for the sciences, and you have priests and all of the stuff for religion, for praising Goddess Hylia, even though she's Zelda. But I think that would be great to add in. Then, of course, maybe some economic problems sprinkled in here and there, like trade issues, whatever the case may be. Maybe there's like culture shock issues. They seem pretty fine in Breath of the Wild, but I don't know. I don't feel like that's intelligent beings' nature unless they've been ascended or something, to be able to live in complete harmony. So that conflict would be interesting, like just clashing over time, like just small disputes rising because of this culture and this culture and this culture. For instance, if you go into some Asian cultures, like if you're at an airport or something, people will just walk through you rather than around you or say excuse me or pardon me, like they would like the American South. In the American South, even though we have some crappy people down here, there are a lot of nice people down here and they're very polite. So they'll be like, oh, I'm sorry, excuse me, and stuff like that. Like just cultural differences that can create a clash. I think you could do something with that. Maybe some kind of racial tension over any particular thing that happens. Just to ratchet up story. Now this is a little bit out of the realms of Zelda. I don't think Zelda will ever go this far for some time, but you know, it's something to think about. I would also like it if character choices shaped their own destiny to a certain degree. Don't make it to where it's like one straight line. Make it to where, oh, okay, so this person does this or this character does this, then X, Y, and Z happens. And there's different, given on what the character is, there's different outcomes for that character. Just hitting on general psychology and stuff like that. Politics too. If you're going to rebuild a society, then I think politics should play a pretty decent sized role. And I feel like if you're going to expand and places are going to get more territory, more or less territory, then I feel like politics should take a role. And considering the fact that Zelda in general has had like a whole monarch kind of thing, you've had the king and then Zelda, and then of course a no longer here wife. For whatever reason, she's always not around. Zelda always has an absent mom, which probably explains a lot, but technically she is a god, so but anyways, considering the fact that Majora's Mask had a mayor, which seems that there is a diplomacy, there's kind of like a democracy going on there. I don't see why that wouldn't be listed in or at least used in rebuilding Hyrule. I mean, I guess you can make Zelda queen, but I don't think Zelda really wants that. It's just my opinion. She probably will accept it, but I don't think she really wants that. I'd rather her be free to do as she sees is best for Hyrule and for herself. And then just do a democracy thing to where whoever seems to be the most suitable to lead, and then, you know, they have their council and all that other stuff of all these elected officials. I think that would be really good for Hyrule, or at least this particular point in Hyrule. I think it would be much more interesting and have much more complications and things to think about rather than just like a simple, because a monarch is just, it's boring. I mean, you could have some drama there. You really can, but I don't know. I feel like with the king gone, Zelda's mentality, I feel like she would go that route instead. I don't know. I just really like the Mass Effect kind of thing. But I think I've rambled on too long. Good Lord, like way too long. These are just some elements that I'm thinking of adding into making or at least trying to make the godlike sequel of Breath of the Wild that I have in mind. I'll probably do like a part 2, maybe a part 3. I don't know. It depends on how well it's received. If people really like it, I'll legit build out a sequel for Breath of the Wild myself, because I've kind of been wanting to. I don't think a lot of people really give a crap about it, but I think I can make a fairly interesting, enjoyable, heart-wrenching. See, I'm not gonna sit up here and write a book, but I'll at least give you the generals of it, the generalities of it. Just like this happens, this happens, this happens, this happens. Not going into extreme detail, because I've already hit like 50 minutes of explaining just the nuts and bolts that I have in mind for a sequel. Trying to do an actual mini novel will probably take like maybe 2 or 3 hours for each video. So I know people don't have the attention spans like that, which is fine. I understand. I wouldn't have the attention span for it too. People probably don't have the attention span for this in and of itself. Could make it like a podcast kind of thingy. I don't know, just whatever will make it to where you can consume it without being like, oh boy, this is draining on forever. But even though I'm kind of droning on forever right now. Anyways, let's wrap this up. That's what I have for the nuts and bolts of making the general elements of the story. If you like this kind of content, definitely feel free to hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, share wherever you share things. Feel free to leave a comment down below. I greatly appreciate you. I have to ask you this over and over because YouTube isn't going to do me any favors. Let's be real. YouTube could care less about me. I'm nothing. So if you like what I do and you want to support me, you can do that, or you can definitely hit my Patreon. Tier start is always like $1 a month. Definitely feel free to check that out. And if you want to support me and what I do, I'll understand if you don't, because times are really hard. So take care of yourself first. Don't let me be your last dollar. I appreciate it and I love you for that, but please don't. But if you have some cash to spare too and you want to get yourself something nice, if you aren't completely devastated about what's going on in the world around you, thirdiverse.com, some sexy apparel there. Definitely feel free to treat yourself. It's the least that you could do is you can support me and you can treat yourself to something nice. Some fantastic designs there made by some amazing artists. Definitely feel free to check that out. But with that said, I believe my task here is done, and if enough people enjoy this, then I'll probably make a sequel to it. Until the next video, people, you take care of yourselves, all right? Peace. Damn, boy, 50 minutes. Dang. Man, it's cold out here.